Alright, hello guys, how's it going? Yesterday's video was a huge hit with you guys. You guys loved the when to expect your first snowfall video, so today we're bringing you when to expect your first freeze. Now before we get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. I'd also ask that you join our very exciting Discord server, Facebook group, and our very exciting Patreon page where I'm actually releasing kind of our early September thoughts in just a few hours actually. So if you want to check that out, you can become a patron today. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I want to know, are you officially, as of August 6th, or I guess whenever you're watching this video, are you ready for the cold weather, or are you kind of holding on to the heat and hoping it stays a little bit longer? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at our first frame here. We're kind of doing this the opposite of yesterday's video. First things first, we're taking a look at the late August layer. So it was very important that I made this video very soon because we already have a late August shade here. These areas start to see their freezes, these very high elevation areas in Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and a bit of Utah. They're already seeing their first freeze by the time we're in late August. Very, very surprising, but I guess not really if you think about how high elevation those areas are and how low the population is. It's almost borderline, you can't even live there because it's so cold. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're just going to move on and we're going to add another layer here. Our next layer is going to be the early September layer. And this early September layer is just a layer where, well, you guessed it, by early September, so before September 15th, we are expecting to have already seen our first freeze within these areas. So you can see we've expanded throughout Oregon, portions of California, Nevada, Utah, so a lot of the Rockies up there. There's also a very eastern region up there, the extreme northern regions of Montana, where we do have a little bit of early September, as well as northern Minnesota there as well, and even a bit of Maine. So that's the first area in the eastern United States that's going to start to see their freezes, very far interior Maine. I've actually been up there before. It's a very, very beautiful area. Very remote though. It almost doesn't feel like America because it's just so different than the rest of the country, but I think that's a really cool thing. So if you do live up there, shout out to you. It's a really neat region of the United States, a very beautiful area as well. Let's go ahead and add our late September layer here, and you can see we start to get a lot more widespread with a lot of these regions. So we start to see the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains, the White Mountains, and a lot of northern Maine there included as well. I've been all of those regions as well. Very beautiful area. I just love New England. I can't get enough of it. We see the northern plains start to get their first freeze by late September. Most of northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, most of the upper peninsula of Michigan as well, and the lower peninsula there, we do see a lot of the kind of central regions there do get their first freeze by late September. And basically a lot of the Rockies, a lot of the mountainous regions out there in the west. Now, by late September, so basically by the time we're at October 1st, you will most likely, on average, already seen your first freeze within all of these regions. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the early October region in just a moment, where we're going to start to see a lot more regions get included. Alright, now here we are for the early October. So by early October, within this baby blue region, you will have already seen your first freeze. And so by October 15th, all of these regions should have seen their first freeze. On average, that is. And this isn't, because people got confused in yesterday's video for the when to expect your first snowfall. That isn't a forecast. That's actually your average to date. So like, you know, taking a 30-year average, that's when you would see your first snowfall. It has nothing to do with the forecast, because that would be almost impossible to forecast when you could see your first snowfall this early on. So that was actually just your average, and this is the same thing. This is your average, and then we're going to talk about kind of compared to average at the end, talk about if you could see a little earlier, a little bit later, things like that. But we're starting to see areas like Chicago, more of the plains, more of the Ohio Valley get involved, the interior Northeast as well, just to the north of Boston as well. Here for early October, so by October 15th, again, on average, you will have seen your first freeze in all of these regions here that are colored in at this moment. All right, now what we're going to do here is move on and take a look at your late October region here. So we can see in this darker blue region, we start to see a lot more of the plains, a lot more of the Ohio Valley, a lot of the areas like Philadelphia, DC, Baltimore, New York, Boston getting included. So many, many regions throughout the Mid-Atlantic as well. Most areas by late October that will eventually see a freeze have seen it by the time we're at November 1st. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to move on and we're going to take a look at a couple more layers that we have. And then we're going to start talking about our most recent fall forecast, give you guys a little bit of an update with that and things of that nature. All right, now here we are taking a look at the early November region. So if you're in this region, this green region, you will have seen your first freeze, that is, by November 15th. So we see Eastern Virginia, which is where I'm from. If you're in the coastal regions, the thing you need to pay attention to is that water is going to keep you warmer early on in the season. It takes a little while for the ocean to cool off, so you kind of see a lag in the seasons. You'll notice inland areas see a transition into fall and winter a lot quicker than the coastal regions, and it's because the ocean is still very, very warm and it's influencing that coastal region there. So that's what's happening for Eastern North Carolina, Eastern Virginia. You might be thinking, why is the areas to my west, or if you're on the west coast, why are the areas to my east experiencing the quicker transition into different seasons? And the same story for summertime. It takes a lot longer to get warmer because the ocean is so cool, it's keeping you cold. So if you've ever wondered why that is, that's the exact reason. The ocean is really influencing your temperatures, and that's why the ocean plays such an important role on our seasonal forecasts, guys. A lot of people are like, why do the oceans matter for what's happening on the land? But that's exactly why it really, really influences your temperature, your air temperature there. All right, so again, I kind of got on a little bit of a off topic there, but if you're in this kind of army green color here, that's where you're expecting to see your first freeze by November 15th, so before Thanksgiving. Then last but not least, if you're in this lighter green shade, kind of a lime green, but a little bit lighter, November 15th or later. So this is basically November 15th or later, maybe even in December here for a lot of these Texas, Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, a lot of Florida here, Georgia, South Carolina. So you do expect to see a freeze at some point, but it's going to be after November 15th. And if you are not shaded in, that means you aren't even expecting to see a freeze at any point during the year on average. So Southern California, same story. So really, if you are in any of these shades, you will see a freeze at some point on average. Again, this is just your average. This isn't a forecast by any means. This isn't me saying, okay, particularly 2020, this is how it's going to be. No, this is actually just your long-term average of when you could expect to see your first freeze. And it's almost always going to be near where the average is. These things don't differ that much. So within 15 days of what we're saying is probably when you're going to see your first freeze. So this estimate is going to be pretty accurate for your area. Obviously, it's pretty low resolution because it varies county to county in some areas. So it's very, very difficult for me to pinpoint exactly when your first freeze could be. So you might be thinking, well, this looks wrong, but it might be because of very, very immediate elevation differences that I wasn't able to put in this map because it would have taken me 15 years to make this map if I was doing it that way. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at our fall temperature forecast and talk about a little bit of how that could change your average a little bit, possibly. Then we're going to get into our comment of the day and our patron highlight of the day where we have new patrons. All right, so here was our fall forecast. Our most recent one, I still have one more on the way, so I'm very excited to present that to you guys. But it might be a little bit different. I don't know at this point. I haven't started working on it yet, but I'm expecting it to be out very soon if you guys are excited for that. So we're expecting warmer than normal conditions out west and a little bit of colder than normal conditions, especially in the central United States, but possibly even for the eastern United States as well. So if you're in the western United States, you could see a little bit later than what is typical because of the warmer than normal conditions. So it's going to make it a little bit later and a little bit harder to get that freeze out there in the west. But if you're in the upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, I think you could see your first freeze a little bit earlier. Now, this isn't always true because, look, you might be expecting to see your first freeze in September. It might be warmer than normal in September and then colder than normal in October and November. That would still come out with that 3 months. It would still be below normal, if that makes sense, because the average of the 3 months is below normal. But I guess there's an increased probability that you would see a sooner than normal first freeze for a lot of these blue regions, and a lesser chance than normal that you would see your first freeze earlier than normal there in the western United States because of the temperature anomalies we're expecting this fall season. But again, stay tuned for our next fall forecast because we might be updating a lot of this, which would be crucial to your first freeze forecast. All right, now for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys in yesterday's video about when to expect your first snowfall. I asked you guys, how much snowfall do you want to see this winter? And Mr. Green and Purple said, I'm personally wanting several massive blizzards, and I think a lot of you feel that same way based on the comments that I got in yesterday's video. And anyway, here we go with our patron highlight of the day. We've added a few more names to this, but thank you so much, Mark J, for being a Diamond patron. Shout out to you. It's awesome to see you guys selecting those upper tiers to get this vocal shout out at the end of these videos. If you'd like to become a Diamond or Platinum patron, you can check out the Patreon page, or any patron at all if you want to be on the screen. You can check that out in the description or the pinned comment and support the channel today. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.